Hi, I'm Josh Collier, and welcome to our Truss Fabrication Guide. Before your fabrication session, you'll need to laser cut your gussets with the proper wood grain orientation for each gusset. You'll also need to sign up and attend a truss design review, and be sure to bring a 100% scale print of your truss for recording feedback. You'll need around 2 hours for truss fabrication and glue up if you're fully prepared. You will need to keep your truss clamped a minimum of 16 hours before removing the clamps. After waiting a full 16 hours, you'll need around 30 minutes to unclamp your truss and do final trimming and sanding of gussets near the test fixture bearing points. Fabrication procedure. Gluing up the 30+ components of your truss is not a trivial task. Use of a paper template adhered to a wooden glue-up panel aids in accurate member placement and keeps the truss flat, limiting second-order effects during testing. Preparing the clamp panel. Cut out the template drawing. Your paper print should include 2 separate drawings, one optimized for marking and cutting your truss cord members, and one geared toward optimizing the wood grain direction of your gussets. It's this second drawing that you'll use as a glue-up template. Use a scissors to cut around the clamp panel outline on your drawing so that your template fits on the wooden clamp panel. With the clamp panel sitting directly on the table, generously apply craft glue stick to the top face of the panel, not to the paper. Place one corner of the paper template in the corresponding panel corner and carefully align before lowering the paper onto the glue. Press the template onto the panel, working gradually toward the far corner, and smooth out any irregularities as you go. After adhering the paper template to the panel, cover each gusset region on the template with clear plastic packing tape to limit bonding with the Titebond Type 3 glue, which will ensure easy truss removal after glue up. Cutting the clamping cauls. Clamping cauls distribute the clamping force and help keep the gussets flat. Before proceeding, scan this QR code to learn more about using Japanese pull saws. There's also a QR code posted at the fabrication station. Before prepping any clamping cauls for cutting, check the existing caul collection at your fabrication station for cauls donated by past teams. There's a good chance you can get most of what you need from the pre-made cauls. To make any additional cauls, you'll need to transfer the perimeters of the gussets onto the provided plywood caul stock with a number 2 pencil. As you lay out the cauls, keep in mind that you can only make straight cuts with the pull saw. Be sure to plan your cuts in advance. It's best to put all concave features toward the free end of the stock, away from the table. No cut should be made in the gusset after it's cut free of the stock material. After laying out the cauls on the plywood, clamp the plywood down to the table with a minimum of 2 clamps, and cut the cauls out with the pull saw. After cutting the cauls, you'll want to lightly break the edges with a hand sanding block. The last step is to fully cover the cauls with clear packing tape to limit future exposure to glue. This will make it much easier to remove these clamping cauls after the glue has dried. Marking and cutting the truss cord members. Place the pine stock directly onto the cord outline on the drawing, with the end of the stock in line with the end of the member. While holding the wood still, mark the far ends of the cord as well as the 4 gusset overlap locations on the sides of the wood. In addition to transferring the member length and gusset edge locations, be sure to label the cord member in the middle of the top face to match the drawing. Do not add any pencil marks on the top face near the ends of the cord, since graphite is an excellent lubricant and the glue will not bond to it. Use the end of a second square cut cord member as a straight edge to extend the pencil marks across the entire face of the cord. Once you're done, you'll have 6 lines that establish the gusset overlap regions and the member cut location. Cutting the cord members. Cut the truss cord member to length with a Japanese pull saw and a miter box. You'll want to verify that the miter box is secured to the table with 2 clamps. Assemble the entire truss on the clamp panel without glue to check for fabrication errors and to prep clamps for final gluing. Make note of the gusset wood grain direction lines on your drawing and verify that all the gussets are facing the right direction. Place the clamp panel on two 9-inch tall T-risers to allow for clamp access. Prep the clamps by backing the handles all the way out and adjusting the movable jaw so it fits easily around the assembly. Verify again that the clamps can reach the centers of the gussets. Glue up. All team members helping with the glue up should put on aprons with the clean side facing inward. Titebond Type 3 glue is waterproof once dry and impossible to remove from clothing once it is cured. Apply glue stick at the gusset locations on the clamp panel. Do not apply glue stick directly to the gussets to avoid contaminating the wrong side of the gusset with inferior glue. Apply the gussets to the joints and press firmly. Apply a thick layer of Titebond Type 3 glue to the exposed faces of all the recently placed gussets. Please keep in mind that the working time for this glue is 8 minutes. One by one, apply Titebond Type 3 glue liberally to the bottom 2 gusset overlap regions on each chord member. Lightly set each chord in its place within the truss, paying close attention to lining up the gusset overlap marks on either side of the chord with the gusset below. Temporarily clamp each chord member to the panel to ensure stability during the glue up. You will remove these clamps after all the gussets have been secured. After gluing, placing, and temporarily clamping all the chord members, apply a generous layer of glue to the gusset overlap regions at both ends of each chord. Next, apply a generous layer of glue to the bottom face of each remaining gusset and lightly place it on the truss. Set each of the clamping cauls in place on the gussets. Add one clamp to the center of each gusset with the clamp handle underneath the clamp panel to sandwich the truss between the clamp panel and the clamping caul. Slowly tighten the clamp while another teammate monitors the top gusset and adjoining chords and adjusts as necessary. Please note that it's important to place the handle underneath the truss to limit rotation of the gusset due to the torque on the clamp handle, and to ensure parallelism between the clamping caul and the clamp panel. This parallelism is not guaranteed when placing the swivel pad on the clamping caul. Once your truss is fully clamped, and be sure to check each and every clamp before proceeding, be sure to label your truss with the following: your team number, name, and contact information, and also the date and time of the earliest possible unclamping, which is exactly 16 hours after your last clamp was tightened. Note that after waiting a full 16 hours, you will need around 30 minutes to unclamp your truss and do final trimming and sanding of gussets near the test fixture bearing points. Cleanup. Before you leave, please clean up and organize the truss fabrication station so that it's ready for the next team. Before proceeding, you need to remove the clamps that you used to temporarily secure the chords. Do not remove the clamps from the gussets. After removing the clamps, close them fully by engaging the clutch plates. Gently place the clamp in the appropriate bucket. After removing and storing all the temporary clamps, place your glue up in the designated storage location. Unclamping and final touches. After waiting a minimum of 16 hours, you may remove and store all remaining clamps. Use a putty knife to carefully pry the truss off the clamp panel. Save the clamp panel for future use. Please place all your clamping cauls in the bucket for future teams to use. Sanding and finishing. Place your truss on a sturdy work table with the smooth template side facing up and your truss hanging about 6 inches off the edge of the table. Use 2 clamps at gusset locations to secure your truss to the work table. You'll need the 6 inches of overhang to access the fixture bearing point with a hand sanding block. Before you begin sanding, check the squareness of the gussets relative to the chord member with a combination square. You'll need to initially focus your sanding efforts on the gusset that is protruding farther out. Continue sanding, being sure to frequently check the squareness of the gussets. Your sanding is complete when the gussets are flush with the side of the chord member. Repeat this process for all the fixture bearing locations. Use the hand sanding block to clean off the faces of all the gussets. You may also use a small side cutter to trim off excess glue from around the gussets, but be careful not to damage the gussets or the chord members. At this point, you may decorate your truss if you wish.